Welcome to Beyond the Next Chapter. I am your host, Whitney Clark, and it's hard to believe that 2024 has already come to an end, or it's getting close to coming to an end. Maybe you're one of those people that makes New Year's resolutions, or maybe you're one of those people who doesn't want to think about New Year's resolutions. We've certainly all been there, but one of the questions I get a lot is, how do you find time to read? We all lead very busy lives, so we're going to help you out. And if that is one of your resolutions for 2025, we're going to get you reading a little bit more. So joining me today are three people from Arizona's Family who I adore, who I talk to separately about books and reading. And what I love about this group is that everyone is different and has different interests, but also makes time to read. So joining us today is Katie Thompson. She's a fabulous segment producer here at Arizona's Family for Good Morning Arizona. If you watch something fun and creative on TV, she's probably behind it. Katie does a lot of great work behind the scenes to plan all of our fun segments and interviews you see on Good Morning Arizona, including our Field Trip Fridays. We also have Gilbert Zermenio, also known as Z. He's a longtime photojournalist at Arizona's Family who's one of the nicest people in the newsroom. However, if you're a bad guy, you do not want him to find you, because he is on the investigative team here at Arizona's Family, who are always out keeping them honest and creating change through their reports. And we also have Nicole Kreitz, an award-winning anchor and reporter extraordinaire. You can catch her at noon, 5, 6 on Arizona's Family, and pretty much like any other time as well. I feel like you're always on 8 and 9. She's always out in the community emceeing events and supporting causes while also reporting impactful stories. And you're also a mom of 2 teens who still finds time to read. So thank you guys for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. How are we all feeling? How are we doing with our reading goals? Do you guys set goals?
I hit my goal.
I love
it was
to
a
hear
small
it.
goal. I think it'll go up every year. But I did hit my goal, and I was really happy about that.
What was your goal?
Only 20 books, but that was like 5 more than last year. So I feel like my interest is growing, and then I'm finding more time. So then the goal is getting larger.
Yeah, I love that. Z, do you have a goal?
I do not have a goal. I just enjoy reading books, and when I see one sitting around somewhere, and the title captures my attention as well as the cover, I think about that and I go, let me take a look see here. So I don't have a goal as to how, and I don't count. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I love that.
There was only one year, it was last year, that I actually would post and I'd put a number for this is book number 7 or 18. Then I realized I was out of order on them and I had to go back and fix it. And then I just felt like this is a burden I don't want to have. It kind of hinders. And also, do I feel like I'm not reading the smutty novel that I want to because I don't want to post it? So I don't want to put any like parameters on what I want to read when I want to read. So I don't do that anymore. I just read for pleasure.
Oh,
I love that you said that too, because there's definitely some books where I'm like, do I want people to know that I really enjoyed this book? The one that I read this year was The Idea of You. I don't know. Have you guys read that? There was an Anne Hathaway movie.
Oh, yes.
So it was
I
an Anne
watched
Hathaway
that.
movie, so I wanted to watch the movie, so I read the book. I loved that book. It was just, it was a lot. It was very adult. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
That was mild by comparison to some other things.
Was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
So how to find time to read? Like I mentioned, this is something that a lot of people ask me how I find time between work and just everything else in our personal lives. Nicole, we'll start with you. 2 kids, full-time job. You read a lot, I feel like.
I do. And so I kind of base it off of my routine. So I am a learning person in the morning on my way into work. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to sometimes audible books, but that will like enhance me either, with religious or kind of, something that's nonfiction, but typically it's podcasts. It's something that's news on my way into work. On my way home, it's unwind. So it can be romance. It can be anything else that's like entertaining, romancy, that's just unwinding from work. And then I usually have the hard actual books on my nightstand to kind of get me ready for bed, that type of a thing. But audible books has been what helps me manage my day. So if I'm washing dishes, if I'm quilting, if I'm cleaning up around the house, I just pop in my earbuds and I'm multitasking. And then I'm not concerned with it's taking me 3 hours to do the dishes and the laundry and all that other stuff because I don't care. I'm being entertained and I'm enjoying my book.
And audiobooks I know are big for Katie too.
Yeah. I love Libby. And I also am so happy Spotify introduced audiobooks. It's a limited number of hours per month, but I find that some of the books that I'm reading are within that limit, and it's like 1 month, one book. I'm set. I also have a long commute, 30 minutes in, 30 minutes out. It's perfect for the morning, especially if it's a book that I'm like so excited about, or I finished last night and I need to keep going. So that's a major thing for me. And then I go for walks. At the gym, I'm listening to a book. And then chores, it makes chores more fun, right? So it's like kind of constant audiobook.
There's always, or there has been, a debate of whether or not listening to audiobooks is the same as reading. The large majority of people are like, yes, you're taking in the information, it's reading. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
It is. It is. I live 2 minutes from work, so I don't. On occasion, I'll listen to podcasts, but I don't listen to books on tape unless it's a long road trip, which I do, and I've done that on occasion. But I'm a reader. And I'm kind of a routine guy as well. So first thing in the morning, when I get up in the morning, I turn on the television after I turn on my first pot of coffee, and I make sure that the world's not blowing up.
Yeah.
And then I turn it off, and then I will sit quietly under a lamp with a book and read for a solid hour.
Wow.
And the reason I like reading and not listening is because I don't want to get lost in, that I've missed something. As I'm listening to, because when I'm listening to something, like I'm listening to music, I'll have a tendency to wander off and think about a grocery list or thinking about something that's going on in my life, and kind of get lost. I can't get lost in a book listening to it. Although when I do listen to it, I always like to have someone who has a really good voice, and they can really have a good transition in characters and be able to do voices. So an audiobook like that would be very helpful. But I'm a guy that likes to sit there, and I like to read. I like to look at my little bookmarkers that I make out of old pictures. Like this is get a good laminating machine.
You have a laminating machine?
Yeah. In my edit bay.
Oh, okay.
But I make like old pictures or something like that I want to keep around. I'll make bookmarks out of them.
I love that.
And then use them in my books
Oh my God,
to
that's
keep
so
up.
sweet.
I've never heard that before. I love that.
Oh,
And now we know you
Yeah.
have a laminator here.
Yeah, come on over to my edit bay. And I'll laminate stuff for you. Yeah. So that's what I do. Is in the morning I'll read for a solid hour. I'll make myself do that.
Yeah.
And then I can start my day. But I also leave books around for myself. So by the nightstand, I have a book by the nightstand. I have a book in my news unit. I have several books in my edit bay, and then I'll have a book, by the couch. So I just leave myself books everywhere. I'm not one of those guys that can read one book, with the exception of the C.J. Box Joe Pickett series, which the 25th novel comes out in February.
Oh.
That's the only book that I'll like sit down and like read in less than a week or in less than a couple of days, depending on how it goes. But C.J. Box is an author out of Wyoming, and he has a character who's a Wyoming game warden, and gets into and out of trouble.
Oh, nice.
And I have a bookmarker, laminated bookmarker, that has every single book that I've read of his punched out.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he was actually in Scottsdale earlier this year, and I went to hear his reading of his latest book, and I showed him my bookmarker, and he was like, I wasn't sure if he was going to think I was a freak, but he looked at it and he goes, "Oh, that's really cool." And he turned around and he signed it for me.
that's
So,
special.
so now I have that. But so my process is to leave books around everywhere
It's a good hack.
and capture stories. And so that way you're just kind of living all these different lives around the place, and look for opportunities. And in my news unit, when I'm sitting around, waiting for somebody, because we do a lot of waiting in news, it's rather than listen to talk radio or anything else, I'll read a book.
Yeah. And like 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there can really go a long way. I feel like people get overwhelmed because they think, oh, I need to block out so much of my day to read, when in reality, if you read 10 minutes a day, you're a reader. If you're reading 5 minutes a day, some days I don't read at all. Some days I'll read for 4 hours. Some days I'll read for 30 minutes. It kind of just depends. The audiobook stuff though, have you ever turned off an audiobook because the narrator was not for you?
Yes.
I feel like the voices can make or break a book.
Yeah, it's a huge difference, and it really gets you into a book. Sometimes I have a hard time because I'm into this Sarah Moss series right now, The Court of Thorn and Roses.
Oh.
And I went on Audible last night, and they have a 70 to 80% off sale. Pro tip if you're watching this anytime soon. And so I bought like the next 12 books in the series because they were all on like this great discount. But I have a problem lately because I'll put in an earbud when I'm trying to fall asleep. And this is not healthy for me because I will just shake my phone to give me another 30 minutes or another 15 minutes because I figure if I set 30 minutes, I'll fall asleep and then I can track back on Audible. But I just keep wanting to stay up.
Yeah.
So the narrator really does make a huge difference.
Yeah, if they're a performer, like if they're performing the book, The Wager was a recent book that just came out by the same author who did Killers of the Flower Moon, and I'm escaping on the name. And I did not think I would be into this book. It's about a shipwreck from like the 18th century. I'm like, this is not me. And then I listened to the audiobook, and this guy was performing it.
So good.
And I was like there on the boat, and I listened to it like within a week. It was incredible.
How long was it?
It was like 300 pages, I want to say, and there were photos in the book. And it was based off of a true story, and I'm like, I don't know, nonfiction. It was like not nonfiction, it was like historical fiction, kind of. And they're making it into a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
He's like in every movie.
Every movie. He's just like got this whole genre down. But it was the performer of the audiobook that just like nailed it.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, but Z said something interesting that I agree with. I have a hard time reading books that I want to take notes on, like historical books or something like that. So I need those to be tangible because I want to take time to like reread and go back over it. So I can only listen to Audible of things that I consider entertaining.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I can just take it in and multitask. Yeah. But if it's something that I want to like absorb, something political or otherwise, I want to actually have it as a tangible read.
Yeah, I get that. I like audiobooks if it's a memoir, like a celebrity. So Viola Davis had a memoir, and she narrated it, and it was incredible. I mean, she's an incredible actress. And then I listened to Matthew McConaughey's.
Yes, Greenlight.
That was so entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean, Matthew McConaughey is so entertaining. Do you guys listen in 1.5? Do you speed up the audiobooks or do you listen just regular?
If it's a great narrator, I leave it alone.
Okay.
If I'm not feeling it, I'll speed it up. And if it's a podcast, I listen 2.0 sometimes because I just need to absorb the learning information. I can absorb learning information fast if it's a podcast because it's like day of current events, and I'm just like, I need to absorb it faster.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm 1.2 and that's it. I can't do it much faster than that because then it's like chipmunk voice in my. I don't know. I can't do it. Although if a book is really engrossing and I just like want to like shove the book into my head, like I might do like a 1.5. I just like want to know what's happening. Yeah. But I can usually not go higher than that.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't do that because I have a CD player.
Old school.
Once again,
we
the
love
old
that.
guy in the group,
Oh my
old
God, we
school
love that.
CD player in my 2001 Tahoe that I listened to. So
Oh my gosh,
yeah, I
I
can't
love
do
that.
1.2 or 2.0.
And that Tahoe has taken you on many adventures,
Yes,
I'm
it
sure.
has. It has,
You're a
yeah.
library girl because I have my brother and sister-in-law like, why do you pay for your Audible books? You should go through the library. And I have not. So I need to get on that hack.
Yeah, how does that work? Is Libby, right?
Yeah.
Libby?
There's a couple things you can do. There's Libby is library audiobooks only, and then you can, and then there's other apps for library books or just like the website. I'm also a library book girl, but it's only good if you're not concerned with reading the latest book as soon as it comes out. If you're okay with waiting, then it's perfect. I think Phoenix Public Library, which is the only one I'm a part of, is pretty quick, and they'll auto-renew for you if it's not like a hot in-demand book and it's like taking you some more time. And I just, going into a library, I'm still kind of like that little kid.
Yeah.
I love going into my library branch is Desert Broom. Shout out North Phoenix, Cave Creek.
That's awesome.
It's just, it smells really good and everyone's really nice. And I'm just a library girl. But for Christmas, I did ask for some physical books.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, what was on your list?
Let's see. What did I ask for? I asked for the Ina Garden memoir.
Oh, okay.
And then a couple of other ones that are escaping me. But
I love the library. I'm a big library supporter. I love the people that work there. Same thing with Katie. Like, I grew up going there, so as an adult, it's like you get free books. Like, it's amazing, and it smells so good. That branch, the one where you live, kind of like
Desert
North
Ruin.
Phoenix, it's so pretty. We went there just to like go check it out. It was great. So love the library. I also use a Kindle, so I feel like with e-readers, you can also download books that way. Z, are you? No, you're just physical books. Do you have an e-reader, or you just?
I do
stick to
not have an
physical?
e-reader. I'm a physical book guy, and I love reading a book on the beach with a
Oh,
beer
yeah.
and my Bose speaker, listening to yacht rock, and that's
He's
me.
such a vibe.
Can you take us with you?
Yes, absolutely. Carlsbad.
We
You'll
will
love it.
let you read. We'll all just read.
Yeah, we'll all just read quietly. Silent
We'll
book
get in
club.
your Tahoe
Just
and
me and-
just.
yeah, we'll all get in my Tahoe and we'll all go. No, I'm a Burton Bar library guy, and I love the Burton Bar. It's just a beautiful, beautiful building, and the people are very helpful. I am on Libby, but I have not. I haven't figured it out yet. So, and once again, because I'm not an audiobook guy. I'm not like jumping on board for that quite yet. But I think that after this conversation, I think I'm missing out. Especially the
swayed
1.2 to 2.0 thing.
Well, there's
Just
nothing
blew my
like
mind.
having a book,
Yes.
though.
I
Like,
agree.
There really
feeling
is.
it.
It's
Totally.
just-
I don't know. Do you ever do the page? I do.
Sure.
Do
Yes.
that. Like there's nothing like having a book in your hand.
I agree. I will always, that will always be like my preference over anything else. But it is nice to just, I read like when I'm falling asleep, it's nice to have my Kindle because I don't have to worry about turning the light off, which is like a very like small problem. But I hate having to like turn the light off because I'm already like tired. So I'm just like laying there with my Kindle and I've literally fallen asleep with it in my hand and I'll have to like wake myself up. So that's a benefit, I suppose, is because it lights up.
It
like
is
that.
shocking when you startle
Yeah, you're
yourself awake. Then I'm like, I got to read 30 more pages. I don't know, but I have one of those like little fold over
one of the
rechargeable
lights?
lights,
Okay.
and that's helpful because
smart.
it can die, and then you just plug it in and recharge it like your phone. But I used to be a book hoarder. I liked seeing them on my shelf. I remember the stories and stuff. But now, to me, I share with my sisters and friends because I feel like that's the greatest gift. If I really
It
loved
is.
this book, I'm going to give it to others, and then I'll rebuy it for myself. I think, Whitney, I let you read
did.
Night Road by Kristen Hanna. This was one that like really made me cry because as a mom, there's just like really, it's a modern connection about forgiveness and parenting that it just really gripped me. But and this wasn't a read this year, but I have given this to multiple people. I bought a new one for myself, and each time I buy a new one and I put it on my shelf, I give it to someone else, and then I buy it back again because it's that meaningful to me. And then Chris Hilliard in our newsroom is also a big reader, and he said, I'm trying to figure out what to get my mom, and I said, buy her books that either you love and you want to spark that love in her, or buy her books on your TBR list, and then once she's
give
finished,
it to
you
you.
can read them. So it's like you can look at it either way,
Yeah.
like to spark that love for others and encourage them to like start reading more, or to add to you're
Yeah.
going to be the recipient
I
of that
love
as well.
sharing books. There's such a good
Yeah, yeah.
connection.
It is. And I love it. I love getting people's recommendations and then giving recommendations. And I want to say, I feel like that may have been the first Kristen Hanna book that I ever read is when
Wow.
you gave me that book years ago. And I feel like you guys would love it. I know we all have like different tastes, but it's I know you like have read Kristen Hanna.
I love her.
She's amazing. It's I think as a parent, you'll love it.
Okay.
Even not as a
Yes.
parent, I
Okay.
loved it. It was so good. I think about it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought that.
It has universal, and the women. Can I just say
Yes.
that's maybe my new favorite Kristen Hanna. It was so good.
I never thought I would be interested in a story surrounded by the Vietnam War. I was a little skeptical,
Yeah.
and I was engrossed.
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Beautiful.
I think
Loved
okay.
it.
You brought up asking about like if audibles count as books. I'll do another defense of love stories because Catherine Center, I don't know if any of you have you read her?
I read that.
Okay.
That was really
and this
cute.
is the rom-commers. It's one of her recent ones. But to me, she did this. She had this whole op-ed about how the literary world is like, oh, it's just romance or something. It's not very cerebral, and people feel embarrassed, like you're hiding it in between the covers at the pool. Like I don't want anyone to know what I'm reading. But it's like she talks about how it is a foregone conclusion that there's going to be a happy ending, but hope is a choice. And in a world of like tragedy is a given, why not choose joy? Why not choose hope? And I think that's beautiful. This one is particularly meaningful to me. I went on a camping trip. We're an RV family, and my daughter is a big reader too, but now she has a boyfriend, so she's like, oh, I'm in love. I don't have time for any of that business.
She's like, I'm in love. I don't need a love
And then
story.
she's like, I'm just going to stay in the RV while the boys are out ATVing and stuff. I said, you've got to start reading this. She goes, oh, maybe. But, to get kids off their cell phones, I said, just listen to some of this. So I started reading aloud, and then she goes, keep reading. We read it out loud together. And just like, Katie, you mentioned like dog-earing some of the pages. But I'm
so
like,
cute.
some of these, here's a golden line I put aside here. If you wait for other people to light you up, then I guess you're at the mercy of darkness. There are so many just like good lines in here. Awesome. Again, with parenting, it's all about the details you'll notice and the joys you savor and the hope you refuse to give up on. I'm like, I love stuff like this. So romance, it can be sheer entertainment and passing like, ooh, that was really spicy.
Yeah.
Or it can be very meaningful. And she is particularly one of my favorites. I just gobble her up every time. And I'm that way. Are you guys that way with an author? If you love someone, then I just hoard everything of theirs. And I'm like, ugh. Yeah. Now when are you going to write the next one?
I feel that way about Kristen Hanna, actually. And so the women came out this year. And she takes her time, like, researching these books. Yeah. So she probably won't come out with another book for, like, 3 years. So I have, like, probably 6 of her books at home that I haven't read yet that I'm waiting to read.
Oh, good.
So I can wait on those. But she's one of my auto-read authors, 100%. Do you guys, is there, CJ Box, I know is your guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's coming out with number 25, and I've read 24. So he's coming out with the next one. So
you're saying you kind of like him?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, the reason I got into him during the pandemic. A friend of mine shared a book, and it was the number 13th of the series, and it was very easy to catch up anywhere in the series. You don't have to start at open season in 2001. I got like number 13, and I read it, and then I started doing some research, and then I kind of got into it. So now my bookshelf, like you talk about books, and I have this one dedicated bookshelf that is all CJ Box.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Now the Joe Pickett series is there's a Netflix version of it, but it's not good. But the book is great. It's not the same. So the book is great. So I'm into him, but I'm not into any. That's the only author, with the exception of Victor Villaseñor, who wrote Reign of Gold, and then 13 Senses after that, and Isabel Allende, who I just absolutely love. And you were talking about romance, and that's one of the things that I love about books is that. Genres, because a lot of people will just stick to a genre. And I kind of have trouble recommending books to people. I mean, you're easy when I come across one, because I have a friend of mine who reads the same books that you guys do, and I can drop one off at your desk so you know who it comes from.
That.
I have,
and I've done that for you too. I did Bridges of Madison County.
I still have that. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
My bookmark is my daughter's
Wedding
invitation.
invite.
But I want to read a passage from
please do.
From Daughters of Fortune and Isabel Allende, and you talk about steamy, and you'll read a James Patterson book, and it's about a Texas Ranger who has to investigate one of his own, and he's got a girlfriend who's a country and western singer, and he describes her blonde with jeans that are torn, and that's kind of about it. And the first time he saw her, it was over a couple of beers, But you go from that description of meeting someone to the way Isabel Allende writes how someone sees someone for the first time or is trying to get their attention, and it just, oof. So this is
Where's he taking us?
Forgive the names.
Okay.
But just the words. That day in May, Eliza placed the tray on a bench and offered the cooling drink first to the laborers. In order to gain time while she controlled her shaking knees and won the battle that was mullishly paralyzing her chest and blocking her breathing. And only then, to Joaquin, who, absorbed in his task, barely looked up when she handed him the glass. When he did, Eliza moved as close to him as she could, calculating the direction of the breeze so it could carry the scent of this man who she was sure was hers. With her eyes half closed, she inhaled the aroma of damp clothing, common soap, and fresh sweat. So
Wow.
when you read lines like that,
Yeah.
you know, and describing how somebody affects you, or how she's trying to get his attention, or not even his attention, but just trying to soak him in, you know, those are the kinds of things that, you know.
I'm putting this on
Yeah,
my
me
Goodreads.
too. I'm like,
What's
wait,
it called?
what is the
Daughter
title?
of
Can you tell us
Fortune.
again?
Well,
Okay.
it's Isabel Allende. She's like 80 years old, and the story it's a series of books, but it's about a Chilean family who makes it to San Francisco and then eventually winds up making it big. But there's a lot of heartache, and a lot of romance, and a lot of just really good storytelling throughout it, and I just love it. It's a Daughter of Fortune, and then Life in Sepia is also one of them.
Wow.
But that's what I love about not sticking to one genre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know.
totally.
And so those two, and then the other one that I'm reading, and this one is the one that I think every journalist in the market or in the business should read, which is The Trauma Beat. And this is a book that's written by, I'm from Texas, so I'd call her Tamara, but it might be Tamara Cherry. And she was a journalist in Vancouver that covered the crime beat. And so she went back after she left the business and re-interviewed family members of people that they covered who were victims of crime. And specifically, the questions were, how did the media treat you? And what do you remember about how they treated you, and what were the pluses and minuses, and what can we do better? And she describes through there how there are some families who just handle trauma differently. And some people, you know, won't even put out a statement. Some people will put out a statement. Some people are wanting attention to because their kid is missing, or somebody shot their child and he died, and nobody's paying attention to it. So it kind of goes through that. And I have actually applied some of the lessons that I've learned in this book to trying to, in my approach to folks who have dealt with trauma. And it hasn't worked out so well the first time, but I'm not going to keep trying.
Oh, that's great.
That's the key, is just like learn, you know, we're learning and doing better, and
Yeah, exactly. So that's a really good book for journalists. And then the last book that I'll share is Paul Theroux, On the Plain of Snakes. And I want to read a passage from this one too, if you don't mind.
Please do.
I feel like I'm taking up all the time here.
No, you're good.
And this is a photo of my daughter when she was a little wee one. On our front steps. I sent her a picture of that. So that's
a good idea.
I know,
Yeah.
that's so cute.
I like it.
Yeah, it just reminds you. I mean, the reason I have this one on here is because sometimes this book can get a little tough. He travels through Mexico by himself in different parts of, and like deep into Mexico, all the way down to Chiapas, which is the southernmost state, Mexico, in a little car. And he just talks to people and he shares their stories. He did the same thing in the southeastern part of the United States, in small Mississippi and Alabama towns and stuff, just to get to know that part of America. And then this was done right around the time of Trump's first administration. So he talks a lot to the people down in the Mexico villages and small towns and bigger towns, and he gets mugged at one point by a Mexican police officer south of Mexico City, and he describes all that. And it's just a really good one of those books that it doesn't have a storyline other than him traveling through Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
True
So
storytelling.
there's just
Yeah.
a bunch of little stories throughout the story itself, and it's also one of those that I can pick up and put down anytime and catch right up.
Sometimes those are I mean, I like books that are kind of like not about nothing, but no clear like plot. And Katie and I were just talking about that, because you said you sort of need a plot. Like you
I
need
do love a
something to like hook you.
Yeah.
I do love a plot.
I do love a
It's a
plot.
pretty important part of a book.
That's
great.
I mean, there are definite books that don't have like a clear plot. Like one I read this year was The Dutch House. You could argue there's not a lot that happens in that book. It's mostly just about a family through the years.
Yeah.
But I loved that one. Tom Hanks read that one.
That's good.
Oh.
So good.
Oh, that's nice.
But then you've got plots like The God of the Woods, which was one I just read and finished 2 days ago. Clear plot, psychological, not something I normally would pick up. Almost 500 pages, I think.
I think that did your mom and I influence you on that one?
Yes, my mom is a massive influence on me, and she'll listen to this and she'll know. Like I read everything she gives me, and she's like, "You'll like this," and usually she's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, Z, you kind of mix it up with the genres.
Yes.
Katie, you're pretty good at mixing it up with the genres, and you do. It sounds like a lot too, like nonfiction, romance, kind of all the above.
I'll try listening to everything. But above all, I feel like in the first few pages or chapters,
Yes.
I need excellent writing. And if I don't find it, I'm like, this is cheap and dumb. And I just put it down and I'll pick something else. Because I'm like, time is money and it's precious.
Yes.
So, yes, I want to be entertained. Yes, I want to be improved. But just some of the writing is so beautiful. I'll just stop down even if it's on Audible or something, and I'll bookmark it. Like, that was so friggin' beautiful. Like The Authenticity Project by Claire Pooley. The writing is just so beautiful. It's so crisp. It's so descriptive and thoughtful. I'm like, I just appreciate that so much. The way that they crafted that simple thing that was happening there in just such a beautiful way.
Yeah, I love a good balance of incredible storytelling and writing, but also realistic dialogue. One thing that will pull me out is if someone says something that is a clear plot device that is not realistic. No one would ever say that in real life. As a journalist, as someone who's worked with sound bites my whole life, like I'll get right out of that book. A lot of I tried to read the X-Hex because I wanted a Halloween book, and I was like, ugh, no, they're not talking.
Cringe.
They're not talking real right now. But one of the best books of the year, and I would say my favorite of all time is Demon Copperhead.
I read that, yeah.
Oh my gosh. It left me in pieces.
So good.
It was incredible. And you don't even need to know anything about David Copperfield to appreciate this book. Talk about real life, rural America, Appalachian, just heartbreaking, real true stories. A young boy going through love and deep, sad, tragic, real life problems like the opioid crisis and poverty, and yet just exquisite writing and storytelling. And that one broke me.
That, like All the Colors of the Night, too. Very
yes,
similar.
I know. Yeah,
Yes.
I've had that book on my Kindle for quite a while, and it's like on the longer side. So sometimes when something's long, I have to like mentally prepare myself.
Yeah.
But I've heard like nothing but good things about that book. I'm so excited about it.
That's cool. Are there genres that you're like, you stay away from? Like, I stay away from horror books and self-help.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't
self-help
do
books.
gore. You can't do self-help.
You don't know me.
Yeah, that's true.
That's amazing.
I feel like a lot of self-help books, I have to be, if it's written by like a psychologist and it's more about like something to that degree, I could get into it. But I feel like a lot of those books end up being just very redundant, and it's like the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
I'm the same though, like horror. I feel like I read as a form of escapism, and sometimes our jobs are so difficult and the things we deal with and report on every day. I can't deal with more terrible stuff and blood and gore. Like, I can't do that.
But one thing that pushes the envelope is suspense, like Lisa Jewell.
Totally.
So that, to me, is not relaxing at the end of the night. And I'm like, I've got to figure out what's going to happen to her. But so that's the most that I'll do. I do not do horror. But Lisa Jewell does push very twisty plot lines and, cultish things and everything. You're like, what is going on with this family?
Thriller is fun.
Yes.
But it's
Suspense
good.
and thriller,
Yes.
yeah.
But not before bed. I have to,
No.
you're right. Like, before bed, I'm reading like a love story or a romance or something like lighter that's not going to scare me or like,
I mean,
make me
a
not
soft
fall asleep.
landing is what my doctor calls
Oh.
it. Is the last hour as you're settling into bed. So no TV, no phone.
Yes.
Read a book.
Yeah.
You can stop yourself at a certain
Yeah.
point and then go off to sleep.
I have a hard
Yeah.
time stopping though. I really do. And then I'm like, is this light a blue light, a yellow light?
No.
What is it on?
No,
Am I
you're-
staying awake?
No,
Because
you're
this
exactly
is so
right.
good.
No, which is why the type of book you're reading at that time is
It's
really
important.
important.
Yes,
Yeah.
I need to make a mental
Yeah, it's just not
decision.
a self-help book.
So, like I mentioned, like we've been talking about, reading is something that I hear a lot of people say they want to become a reader, they want to read more. Do you have any other like tips, advice for people that want to get into reading in the new year?
Start with a small book, The Pearl.
Yep.
Which is
Or
what,
this one,
right.
small things like
small
these.
things like these. Just start with a small book,
Small,
easy read. Something that it's like riding a bicycle.
yeah.
Or relearning how to ride a bicycle. Just start out with a small book. Don't start out with Plane of Snakes. Just start out with a small, easy read book that just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Because once you get that feel good opioid, then you start realizing that this is a good use of my time.
Yeah. And also, Nicole was mentioning life's too short. There's a lot of stuff out there trying to grab our attention. Our attention is currency. And if you don't like something, try again.
Yeah.
Put it down. There's nothing wrong. You don't have to finish a book, I don't
Right.
think. Life's too short. So try again. If you really do want to get engrossed in a book, and a lot of people are talking about the Sarah J. Maas books and how they're like wasting a weekend or whatever.
Oh.
It's not wasting a weekend. It's just how you
No.
spend your weekend.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like if it's not for you, then I would just try new things and see what's out there and put it down if you don't like it.
I really do think that's the key. You're not going to want to read if you're reading a book that you don't like. Like that's why
Yeah.
so many people stop reading when they're in high school because you're forced to read these books that like Metamorphosis. I was 15. I didn't know what was going on with that book. You know what I mean? Like some of these books you read and then you fall off the wagon and then it's hard to get back on. So I think it's like if you find a book that you love, you're going to make the time
You will.
essentially.
Right. And if you haven't tried Audible yet, give it a go.
Yep.
And look for 5-star ones that have like 89,000 and it's a 5-star. That is a sure thing. And you look into that, it's going to re-energize that feel good, I'm loving this. And if it's a start of a series, even better, because then it will just propel you into like, oh, okay, this feels good. I like this.
Yeah.
And then one thing after another. So I think quick reads, series, and something, look for 5-star recommendations, and that
Yeah.
will set you on a right path.
Also, it's nice to get engaged on Goodreads, for instance. Like, that was one thing my best friend Lauren a couple years ago was like, you need Goodreads. And I'm like, okay. And I just listened and I downloaded it. And it's so fun to see what people are reading, to see their reviews, to keep track of what you've read. And you're really engaged. And it's not like you read a book and even if you didn't love it, it's out of your life. Like, it's still a part of your whole repertoire. And it's fun to like look through and see the reviews and read what the authors are reading and see what the authors say. It's fun to engage in that way, I think.
There is no better feeling than when you finish a book and I can immediately, like, I'm talking seconds after I finish a book, I am on Goodreads saying
Reviewing
that I
it,
finished it. And maybe it'll take me a while for the review, but there's something so satisfying about marking it as read.
I finished this book. Love it.
To me, it's one of the saddest feelings.
Really? Oh,
Because
yeah.
if it's so good, I'm like, oh,
I know.
the story is over.
I
How
know,
can
I
it be
get
over?
that.
And it's just such a good feeling. And another trick, maybe perhaps, is if you're not an avid reader, is maybe look for excellent news articles like the Atlantic or some kind of something that's written, and on their app or on the website there is a read aloud option, so you can bookmark some of those and start listening to those or podcasts like This American Life on your drive. And then that gets you into storytelling. Like if you're a straight news person or whatever, and I don't have time to read for pleasure, maybe segue your life that way. Like start looking for podcasts that infuse storytelling or articles that are storytelling. It is still news, but it's storytelling. And then that will kind of segue your brain into like, oh, I'm still learning something and there's something beautiful happening here. And then it kind of gets you into that, appreciating the written word more.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
Good storytelling, man. Can't
Yeah,
beat that.
so good.
Well, thank you guys for coming.
Thanks,
This was
Whitney.
so fun.
I can't wait to read more.
Yeah, I know. Right now, I'm like, I need to go home and read.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Whitney.
This will be online shortly, and then we'll have links to the books you guys like too as well. So
Yay.
thank
All right,
you.
sweet.